Eric Carle is an internationally known author and distinguished illustrator of over 70 children's books. Carle was born June 25, 1929 in Syracuse, New York. Born to German parents, Carle spent the first years of his life in New York before moving to Germany at the age of 6. As a child, Carle had a hard time adjusting to life in Germany, later noting that he felt extremely stifled by the little room his teachers allowed for creativity and self-expression. He went as far to say that he hated school because of its strict rules and the punishments his teachers would impose. When Carle was 10, World War II broke out and his father was drafted into the German army. For 6 years, he lived in war-torn Germany, his neighborhood constantly being bombed by Allied forces. Carle dreamed of building a bridge from Germany to America to lead his mother and grandmother to safety. Throughout his time spent in Germany, Carle pursued his love of art and cultivated his artistic talents with a few of his high school teachers, who he later points to as his largest supporters and influences. In Germany, he studied various types of artistic expression, but was most drawn to collage because of his fondness for large, bold shapes and colors. After graduating from university, Carle returned to New York in 1952 at the age of 23. With an impressive portfolio, but only $40 in his pocket, Carle soon landed a job as a graphic designer for the New York Times. After a brief period of employment at the Times, Carle worked as an art director for a New York advertising agency. While there, one of his colorful collages caught the eye of Bill Martin, Jr., author of Brown Bear, What Do You See? Immediately, Martin contacted Carle and asked him to do the illustrations for the book. Carle thought Martin's approach to children's literature was extremely stimulating, noting that it reawakened in him some of the struggles he dealt with in his own childhood. After completing the artwork for Martin's Brown Bear, Carle found that he wasn't entirely satisfied with just illustrating and wanted to try writing as well. Carle then began to keep his doodles and basic story ideas in a large cardboard box. One day, he accidentally showed his sketches to his editor, who loved them, and Carle's career as an author began. Carle's first book, 1, 2, 3 to the Zoo, was published soon after. Speaking of his success, Carle notes, "Almost without trying, I had become an author and illustrator of books for children." In 1969, he published his most well-known book, The Very Hungry Caterpillar, which has now been translated into 33 languages and has sold over 18 million copies worldwide. Carle completed the beautiful illustrations of the famished caterpillar in just one weekend. Carle notes that the ideas and inspiration for his work doesn't all come from one place, but rather they come from all the experiences in his life, all the thoughts in his mind, and all the feelings in his heart. Carle understands that his love for art, nature, and self-expression is heavily influenced by 3 specific individuals: his father, his high school art teacher, and a very close university professor. Carle's father was also a very talented artist, but did not expand upon his talents and even discouraged Carle from doing so. His father was determined that Carle would not grow up and be a starving artist. Instead, Carle's father pushed his son to pursue one of his other passions, nature. Carle and his father would often take walks through local forests, cultivating Carle's deep love of nature. He notes that if he wasn't an author, he would have been a forester or park ranger. On these walks, Carle and his father would lift stones and peel back the bark from trees to look at the living things living beneath. His father would teach him about life cycles and small creatures, always being careful to return them to their home. Carle's books, many of which focus on the lives of tiny insects and animals, are an attempt to recapture his early love of nature and honor his father. Herr Cross, Carle's high school art teacher, was the main force that motivated and encouraged young Carle to pursue his love of art. Under the Nazi regime, the German schools and teachers were forbidden to share any artwork with students that was not approved by the government. Degenerate artists such as Picasso and Matisse, leading masters of modern and abstract art, were banned by the Nazi regime. However, Cross took a risk of being dismissed and continued to expose Carle to the works of such painters. Abstract artist Franz Marc left a lasting impression on Carle. Marc's work wasn't allowed to be shown anywhere in Germany. Modeling his early work after Marc's bold and striking brushstrokes, Carle continued to paint with freedom, a great contrast to the realistic and propaganda art that the Nazis imposed. Carle, reflecting on the harsh impositions of the Nazi government, later noted, "Just look at the looseness, the freedom, and the beauty of these paintings. The Nazis have no idea what art is. They are charlatans." Carle also draws much of his inspiration for both his writing and illustrations from Professor Schneidler, with whom he studied design from the ages of 16 to 20. What Carle most remembers about his time spent with Schneidler was the way he approached design and the emphasis he placed on responsibility of all artists, designers, illustrators, and creators. Carle notes that Schneidler's message of responsibility, which influences the creation of each and every one of his works, is simple. As artists, you must shape things in a responsible, noble, and tasteful way for everyone who views them. All of Carle's books are written in such a manner, with much concern, appreciation, and respect for the child readers. Some of Carle's most notable works include The Very Hungry Caterpillar. This is Carle's most famous work, which dramatically portrays the life cycle of a butterfly while introducing sets of up to 10 objects and the names of all of the days of the week. Carle notes that this is a book about hope. You little, ugly, insignificant bug, you too can grow up to be a big, beautiful butterfly and fly into the world and unfold your talents. Do You Want to Be My Friend is a wordless picture book that eloquently portrays a plot, subplot, hero, and antagonist, all while searching for a friend. This is Carle's favorite book because it is about friendship. The Rooster Who Set Out to See the World is a book that was written specifically for children who have difficulties with numbers and symbols. Focus is given to the visual representation and perception of numbers and groups. Draw Me a Star is a book inspired by a drawing game that Carle used to play with his grandmother. The book takes readers through the night sky and explores the sun, moon, and stars. The Artist Who Painted a Blue Horse is one of Carle's more recent books, published in 2011. Its illustrations beautifully display Carle's famous brushstrokes and abstract techniques. Carle notes that the green lion, polka-dotted donkey, and all other animals painted in non-traditional colors were born the day that his art teacher showed him the forbidden work of Matisse, Picasso, and Marc. When creating a new book, Carle follows a specific process for both writing and illustration. First, he creates a dummy book, 8 sheets of paper folded and stapled to make a 32-page blank book where he sketches his ideas. He tries to keep his books very simple, all under 32 pages, believing that the simple nature of his work is what most draws in young children. He loves to simplify, reducing images and words to their core essence. Carle notes, "If you are a novelist, I think you start out with a 20-word idea, and you work at it, and you wind up with a 200,000-word novel. I start out with 200,000 words, and I reduce it to 20. To create his famous images, Carle paints on tissue paper using bright and bold colors. He then cuts out shapes of the tissue paper and pastes them together in a collage, creating his unique layered and textured prints. Carle does all the artwork by hand and is hesitant to branch into the world of computers, explaining it continues to be unexplored territory. In all of Carle's work, he passionately strives to encourage young readers to express themselves and their artistic perspectives freely and with passion. Growing up as a child with very limited outlets for his creativity, Carle believes that no child should be inhibited by the rules of modern convention. Additionally, as Carle's teachers emphasize the needs for all designers and artists to be both thoughtful and considerate with their work, he is extremely conscious of the impact that his work has on his young readers. We have eyes, and we're all looking at stuff all the time, all day long. I think that whatever our eyes touch should be beautiful, tasteful, appealing, and important. Carle currently lives in North Carolina with his wife Bobby and his cat Annie. Receiving over 10,000 fan letters every year, Carle makes a determined effort to personally respond to as many of his young readers as possible. In 2002, Carle and his wife opened the Eric Carle Museum of Picture Book Art in Massachusetts. The focus of the museum is to supplement the art and creativity that he deems is currently lacking in public education. Carle continues to write and illustrate children's books at the age of 80 and has absolutely no intention of stopping anytime soon.